My parents skipped my graduation for my sister's prom. I stood on that stage cap in hand, staring at the empty chairs marked reserved for family, and the applause around me sounded like static. That night, my phone buzzed. Not a "we're proud of you," but a text from my mom. "Send $2,000 for your sister's hair and dress." I stared at the screen numb until something in me finally broke. 3 days later, another text arrived. "You're no longer family." I thought that was the end of it until the night of her prom when the truth came out in front of everyone. When I was little, my mom used to say, "A good daughter makes life easier for everyone." I didn't realize back then that she meant everyone but me. In our house, love was earned through favors, silence, and keeping the peace. My mother Valerie lived for appearances. Every family photo was staged, every caption rehearsed. The hearts, grateful, close, blessed, she'd write online, even if we'd just argued about something petty like me leaving my shoes by the door. My father Richard would sip his coffee and mutter, "Let's not make this a fight like that solved anything." And then there was Amber, my mom's baby girl, the sparkle of her social media posts, the one who never heard the word no. If she wanted a designer bag, Mom called it a reward. If I asked for new textbooks, it was a waste. I was the practical one, the helper, the person who kept everything running quietly in the background. When I turned 17, I worked part-time at a bakery to buy Amber a prom dress because Mom said, "That's what good sisters do." The day Amber twirled in front of the mirror, they both cried. I just stood there covered in flour, pretending I wasn't invisible. Years later, not much had changed. My master's degree in organizational psychology was supposed to be my way out, proof that hard work meant something. But on graduation day, the illusion cracked for good. After the ceremony, I walked back to my apartment in Denver. It wasn't much, just a studio with secondhand furniture and a view of the parking lot, but it was mine. I hung the gown on the chair, stared at my phone, and waited. No call, no message, just silence. Then, at midnight, my best friend Maya texted, "Your mom just posted Amber's prom prep on Facebook." Caption says, "So proud of my baby girl. Some people forget what real family pride looks like." I didn't reply. I just sat there, phone in hand, feeling something shift inside me. I had spent my whole life chasing their approval. That night, under the flickering kitchen light, I realized I didn't need it anymore. The next morning, sunlight cut through my blinds like it had something to prove. I poured stale coffee into a chipped mug and tried not to check my phone. I failed. There it was, a new message from my mother. "Need $2,000 for Amber's prom hair makeup limo dress." No good morning, no how was your graduation, just a demand. I read it 3 times, blinking like maybe I was imagining it. I typed, "You missed my graduation." Her reply came fast, "Don't make this about you. Family helps family." I laughed, quiet, bitter. Family helps family. That was her favorite line. Translation, you sacrifice, we benefit. I looked around my apartment. The unwashed dishes, the notes from my thesis, still scattered on the counter. The silence that somehow felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I'd worked 2 jobs through college, skipped vacations, skipped sleep just to make things easier for them. And now she wanted $2,000 for a night of curls and glitter. My phone buzzed again. "Maya, you okay?" I sent her a screenshot. She called immediately. "Liv, please tell me that's not real. It's real. She didn't even congratulate you. Nope. Guess I'm just the family ATM." I tried to laugh, but it came out flat. Maya sighed. "Don't send her anything. Not a dime." For once, I didn't argue. Hours passed. I ignored every vibration, every little buzz from my phone. But when I finally checked, there were more texts, this time from Dad. "Please don't ruin this for your sister. She's been looking forward to it." That was the moment I realized it wasn't just Mom. It was all of them. I opened my banking app and saw the old education account one Mom still had access to. She'd set it up years ago for my tuition. I hadn't used it since graduating, but the balance looked lower than I remembered. I scrolled through the statements. Payments labeled Event Rental Floral Service Dress Boutique. My stomach turned. She'd already started using my funds. I felt my pulse in my ears. There was no confrontation, no screaming, just a quiet, steady decision. I called the bank, waited on hold, gave them the account number. When the operator asked, "Would you like to remove the secondary user?" I said yes. My voice didn't shake. After hanging up, I typed a single message to my mother. No, just that. Minutes later, the screen lit up again. You're no longer family. I stared at those words until they blurred. The air felt thin, my throat burned. Then something inside me, something that had been breaking for years, finally went still. I deleted the chat, locked my phone, and whispered to no one. Good. I didn't cry, not right away. I just sat there staring at the blank wall across from me, letting those 4 words echo until they lost their meaning. You're no longer family. It should have hurt more than it did. But mostly, I felt empty, like the house had finally burned down and I was just standing in the ashes, too tired to care. My phone buzzed again, Dad this time. I didn't answer, but his voicemail played automatically. Liv, your mother's upset. Don't take what she said so seriously. You know how she gets. I closed my eyes. That sentence, you know how she gets, had been the soundtrack of my childhood. I got up, walked to the sink, and dumped my untouched coffee. The sound of it hitting the porcelain was sharp final. Then, I grabbed my laptop and opened the browser. The old education account was still linked, still labeled Olivia Hart Scholarship Fund. My name on the top. My mother's access right beneath it. I scrolled through the transaction list again. $600 to Emerald Gown Boutique, $900 to Plaza Hotel Catering, another $400 labeled Beauty Lounge, all processed within the past week. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, my heart thudding slow and heavy. She hadn't even waited for permission. She'd already taken everything she wanted. My cursor hovered over the option. Remove authorized user. A warning popped up. This action cannot be undone. Good, I clicked. Confirmed. Entered my password. The confirmation banner appeared. Access revoked. Valerie Hart removed. It was quiet after that, almost peaceful. I leaned back in my chair and let out a shaky laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was the first time I'd ever stopped her. A message from Maya appeared seconds later. How are you holding up? I typed back lighter. She sent a heart emoji. Then you did the right thing. Don't let them guilt you again. I didn't plan what came next. I didn't need to. Prom night was 2 days away. My mother had no idea the account was closed. She would show up smiling for the cameras, proud of her perfect night, unaware that the spotlight she loved so much was about to expose her. For the first time, I wasn't scared of her reaction. I was curious. The Denver Plaza looked like a chandelier had decided to become a building, glass gold soft uplights crawling up marble columns. Limos fed a stream of teenagers in glitter and tuxes to the red carpet. Parents hovered with phones up recording proof of a perfect life. I walked past the revolving doors with my hands in my coat pockets and the confirmation email open on my phone. Access revoked. Valerie Hart removed. Time-stamped. Clean. Precise. I could have gone home. I didn't. I found a cafe across the street, sat by the window, and watched the ballroom fill like a snow globe. Music, laughter, curated joy. Through the glass, I saw Amber step out of a white SUV in a silver gown that caught every light like a mirror. She flicked her hair, posed for pictures. My mother hovered beside her in a fitted navy dress, shoulders back, that fixed social smile glued in place. She waved to someone, then angled Amber so the lobby chandelier framed them just right. Even from here, I knew the caption she was already drafting. Proud doesn't begin to cover it. I sipped water and glanced at the time. Transactions for events this size usually ran on a scheduled deposit earlier in the week, final capture at check-in, or before the big moment. The bank had told me what would happen when a charge hit a dead authorization. Nothing dramatic, just a decline. A bland little word that closes doors. The band slid into a slow pop ballad. Teens drifted to the dance floor, arms awkward, faces earnest. Through the window, Valerie moved like a stage manager, whispering to the MC, to a coordinator, to a server carrying a tray of pink drinks. She looked like the woman she believed herself to be, the engine of the evening. The cafe door chimed. 2 hotel staff in black vests rushed in to grab more napkins. One of them spoke into a headset voice low. They were behind schedule on something. The server's eyes flashed past me like mercury. Then they disappeared back into the lobby. I opened my email again. Read the line I'd already memorized. Cancellation effective immediately. It wasn't anger that warmed me. It was the neatness of a boundary finally held. I paid for the water and walked across the street. The lobby smelled like gardenias and new carpet. A bored security guard lifted a hand. I lifted mine back like any other stranger cutting through to the restrooms. I didn't need to be anywhere. I just needed to be near enough to hear when the first crack formed. The ballroom doors were propped open. I stood in the shadow of a palm arrangement. Colored lights swung across a wall of white drape. The MC spray tan tux teeth boomed into the mic about memories you'll cherish for a lifetime. The coordinator clapped twice to cue something. A server sprinted to the tech table. A laptop screen glowed with an email client. The tech guy's finger hovered again. On stage, the MC lifted his hand. Before we move to our next dance, let's take a second to appreciate the people who made tonight possible. A polite cheer rolled through the room, and a special thank you to the Hart family for sponsoring. His smile faltered. He looked past the lights. The coordinator put a phone in his hand, whispering too fast the words catching on each other. He nodded, still smiling to the crowd, then nodded again. Not smiling. Actually, he said, the mic catching on a breath, I need... Just a moment. The band slid into silence like it had been trained for this. Conversations thinned to a hush. The room belonged to quiet now. A manager in a black suit stepped onto the side of the stage. He had the look of someone who only comes up here in case of fire. He took the mic from the MC, swallowed once, and chose formal. Good evening, he said. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're experiencing an issue with the event payment. We just attempted to run the final authorization. It was declined. The word fell like a plate. He kept going professional to the bone. For transparency, our system shows the cardholder name on the file as Olivia Hart. 100 heads pivoted like a flock. I felt the air shift toward me, though I stood in the dark. Valerie's neck snapped toward the manager. She raised her chin. That's my older daughter, she said, voice bright with fury masquerading as charm. She set up the education account years ago. There must be a mistake. The manager didn't argue. He held up his phone screen, tilted just enough for the front tables to see. We have an email confirmation of cancellation, he said. Signed by Valerie Hart, time-stamped 2 nights ago. He read the time. He read the subject line, authorization removal. Sound doesn't vanish in a room that big. It compresses. It becomes whispers with sharp edges. Someone near the stage said, "Oh my God." Someone else isn't that. Her Amber stood beside the stage stairs, clutching her bouquet, eyes as wide as the rhinestones on her dress. "Mom," she said, half whisper, half warning. Valerie's smile died the way a candle dies. She reached for the mic. The manager took a step back. "We'll resolve this privately," she said, her voice slipping out of its casing. "My daughter deserves her night." The manager nodded regret, a muscle he'd used before. "We'll resume as soon as the balance is settled." Valerie turned to the coordinator. "Run it again." She turned to a man in a headset. "Now." They tried. Of course they did. The tech table hummed. Screens refreshed. The band pretended to tune. A teenager coughed into his sleeve. The second decline came with a soft electronic chime no one could hear, then a third, then a fourth. Each little failure pushing the truth closer to the center of the room. Amber's lip trembled. "Mom," she said again, smaller. Valerie finally looked out at the crowd. Parents she knew. Parents she'd lectured about charity auctions and bake sales. Mothers she'd told how to dress. Fathers she'd cornered about sponsorship tiers. For the first time all night, she saw them seeing her. "Where is Olivia?" someone asked too loud. "Isn't she the one with the degree?" It wasn't meant for me, but my feet moved anyway. I stepped out of the shadow and into the fringe of light at the back. Valerie found me like a compass finds north. "You," she said. It wasn't a greeting. It was an accusation with pearls. I kept my hands in my coat pockets. "Me." "You're doing this," she said, voice too calm. "You're humiliating your sister." "No," I said. "You did when you used my account without asking." She took a step the kind you take when you think volume will make you right. "I raised you. I fed you." This isn't a courtroom," the manager said gently, but he let us stand in the open anyway, because the room was already our witness. "Family helps family," Valerie said, and the phrase tasted like rust. I nodded toward the stage. "That's what I was told, for years." The MC tried to rescue the moment. "Why don't we, take a short intermission?" But it was too late for tidy transitions. Phones were up everywhere. Some aimed at me, more at Valerie. A few at Amber, her mascara cutting dark roads down her cheeks. Valerie lunged for a narrative. She's jealous, she told the nearest table voice, pitching higher. She's always been jealous. She can't stand that her sister. Stop, Amber said. It wasn't loud, but it cut. Just stop. Valerie blinked, thrown by the wrong person, revolting. Amber hugged the bouquet like a life jacket. Did you use her money? Valerie didn't answer. She couldn't say yes. She couldn't say no. She ran out of verbs. The manager cleared his throat. We can proceed if another payment method is provided. He was merciful enough not to say immediately. Richard appeared at Valerie's shoulder, looking like he'd sprinted from the parking garage. He wasn't dressed for cameras. He was dressed like a man who'd been called after the fire started. Val, he murmured, let's step outside. She swatted his hand away without looking. We are not stepping anywhere. He looked at me across the distance. His eyes were wet and tired. Liv, he said, soft. Please. I had nothing for him. Not anger, not pity, just the stillness I'd earned. The coordinator whispered something to the manager, who nodded and addressed the room again. We'll take a 15-minute intermission, he said. Snacks and water are available in the foyer. The lights brightened. The spell broke. Clusters formed instantly, parents, students, whispers, sprinting faster than people could walk. The ballroom became a rumor with walls. Valerie turned back to me. You think you're righteous, she hissed low enough for only a few to hear. You think this makes you better. I think it makes me done. She stared at me like if she focused hard enough, she could turn me back into the girl who bought a dress with bakery tips and flour on her knuckles. But that girl was gone, buried under years of neat, quiet compliance. You're no longer family, she said again, trying to make the curse stick where it had failed before. I smiled without joy. You texted that days ago. Amber started to cry the way people cry when they finally notice gravity. She looked at the crowd, then at me. Can we fix it? She asked a child in a woman's dress. You can pay for what you wanted, I said. That's all. Valerie's mouth thinned to a blade. Her phone flashed. Her card failed again in her banking app. I saw it in her eyes. She turned to Richard. Do something. He took his wallet out like a reflex, then put it back because a reflex won't cover a ballroom. He looked at me then, at the manager. We'll figure this out, he said, and it was the truest sentence he spoke all night. I stepped backward out of the light, back into the shadow where I belonged to myself. Behind me, a couple of kids were whispering. Is that her sister dude the mom signed the removal email? No way. Way. At the doorway, I paused. The band tested a chord. The MC flipped through his note cards like maybe one had instructions for this. Valerie stood statue still, a queen, without a throne, while Amber's friends led her off stage murmuring apologies that weren't theirs to give. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't deliver a speech. I walked past the lobby flowers and out into night air that smelled like after rain and city stone. The glass reflected the ballroom for a second, then gave me back my own shape. People think payback is loud. Sometimes it's just the volume turning down on the person who used to control the room. Across the street, the cafe lights flickered. A notification slid across my phone, a system message I'd set to forward from my bank. Attempted charge declined. It listed the vendor and the time. Then another. And another. Each one a period at the end of a sentence I'd been writing since I was 17. I looked through the hotel windows one last time. The MC was back at the mic trying to sound cheerful while announcing water in the foyer. Teens in sequins shuffled toward doors, their eyes wide, their whispers bright. I didn't need a finale. I'd gotten what I came for, the truth on a stage my mother had built for herself. Then the truth about her prom night came out. By morning, the story had already spread. Someone had filmed the entire scene at the Denver Plaza, the declined payments, the argument, even my mother's voice cracking over the microphone. It made its way to Facebook faster than she could delete her old posts. Valerie's perfect world collapsed in high definition. The other parents stopped returning her calls. Amber's friends untagged the photos. The prom committee issued a public statement calling it an unfortunate misunderstanding. But everyone knew the truth. Dad tried to call 3 times. I didn't pick up. The last voicemail was a whisper. I'm sorry, Liv. We should have been there. I didn't need to hear more. Apologies after exposure weren't redemption, they were survival. A week later, I moved into a small apartment in Seattle for my new job at a consulting firm. The air smelled like rain and coffee, not resentment. I unpacked slowly one box at a time until I reached the frame that held my diploma. The ribbon from graduation was still tucked behind the glass. I hung it above my desk next to the window. Sunlight hit the gold seal soft and warm. For a second, I imagined Mom seeing it not through a lens or a filter, but the way it really was. Quiet, earned, mine. An email notification pinged Dr. Whitman, my advisor. When people can't clap for you, it's because they're not meant to sit in your audience. I smiled. For the first time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace. I stood on my balcony that evening, watching the Seattle skyline fade into gold and gray. The city hummed quietly below. No applause, no judgment, just life moving forward. I took a deep breath, the kind that feels like starting over, and whispered, "Silence isn't surrender. It's peace." If you've ever been the one left out, the forgotten, the overlooked, remember this. Walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you finally chose yourself. Share your story in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.